Okay, so we are starting block 1, unit 1, OD, right? So OD is, so first it starts with definition of OD, right? So as usual, everybody has their own definition. So we are going to talk about important aspects of that definition. Okay. So we don't really have to remember each and every scientist definition. So we just have to write one definition. So it could be a 3 marks question. So like any other definitions, we need to actually understand what are the important points. One, actually a critical scientific based process. Underline scientific based process which helps organization to achieve greater effectiveness. So this is a process which is going to improvise the organization. It is going to make them effective. So it could be effectiveness, could be strategy, it could be structures, it could be process. So OD covers end-to-end development of an organization. Things that you need to underline here is it is a scientific process, not a random one. Second, this is actually covering overall development of an organization, not any particular aspect, all, including goals, vision, strategies, structures, processes, everything. Okay, so that these are the important things. The other important thing about definition is culture plays a very important role when we talk about OD. So some of the scientists, they even formed culture as one of the basis of this particular definition. So it is like changing the culture of the organization is how they actually say. So OD is also, I mean, there is a lot of emphasis on the culture. So especially one of the scientists told that it is planned process of change in org culture. Okay, culture includes how they manage people, how they treat people, how they compensate people, etc., various aspects of culture through behavior science, research, theory, everything. So that is what is the definition of OD. Okay. So now what we are actually going into factors of OD. Okay. So there are 5 factors of OD. Again, remember from the definition. Whatever definition that I talked about is the factors here. It is planned change effort. So basically you plan things. It's not random. 2, it involves total system. So it is not one part of the organization, one part of the, it is, we are not talking about one part of it, right? It is actually total organization is what we are talking about, right? And this is something which is managed by top. So this is very, very important is what we are actually saying involves total organization. How can end managers can drive it? It has to be the top management who needs to drive this particular process. 4, this is going to increase overall effectiveness of the organization from multiple ways. 5, it achieves its goals using planned intervention using behavior science. Okay, let me explain this point again. This is again talking about same thing as the first point, which is planned change effort. But the key underlying aspect here is it uses interventions to do that. Okay, what is intervention? So from the name of it, you can derive that there is something that is going wrong. You are actually intervening and changing it. That is what is intervention. So basically, OD uses these interventions and also behavior science knowledge to achieve its goals. Basically, we talked about culture, how exactly culture could actually change. The behavior science plays a lot of part here, right? So that is what this 5th item is. So when it comes to important factors, this is what you need to tell. So now we are going into goals. What exactly OD is aiming at, right? So basically, here we talked about few aspects like this is something which is going to create a overall impact on the organization. This is going to change the underlying culture. So first and foremost, first goal is it creates an open and problem solving atmosphere. Basically, entire atmosphere of the organization would be improvised for good. So it should be open and people should be able to solve the problems and all those stuff by themselves. Second, okay, so people will be able to actually have clarity on their particular roles and they know what is the authority that they have got, where they belong to the organization, how to deal with that role as well. So they know everything about what they are supposed to do in the organization, where they fit, okay, and what all things that they have got as an authority to do, right? And it is going to make their decision making smooth and clear. People will have more trust on the organization, and there is a healthy competition. There would be a reward and other things which are motivating people. So when there is a question which talks about goals of OD, the thumb rule that we need to remember is imagine an ideal organization like heaven on earth and describe all the things which you think what ideal organization provides. That's all is the goal here, right? So basically everybody will be productive, everybody is happy with the rewards, everybody knows what they need to do, right? And entire production is so effective, their performance is so good, they are going to actually do everything good. These are all goals of OD. So we are talking about some heaven on the earth kind of an organization which practically might not exist, but that is what OD aims at, right? So so there is a word here, okay, which is VUCA, VUCA. So basically nothing but this particular, there is a full form, which you can probably see. I forgot the full form exactly, but ultimately what this actually says is this VUCA word stands for ever-changing world. Basically, the world is like very, very, very agile, right? So it is talking about that world which requires creativity, which requires that agility. Yeah, C is creativity, A is for agility. Similarly, B and U has got something. Basically, we are talking about a world which is like very complex, agile, ever changing. So that is what is the VUCA world. It talks about this. VUCA is not a OD term. This is a general term which talks about how generally the world is. It is very, very complex to understand. It is not easy to understand. It changes very rapidly. It requires that agility to do it, right? And you require to be creative to solve this particular complexity. All those things is VUCA world. So OD is very much required and it needs to go on to deal with this VUCA world, right? In order to keep organization effective, it's not one-time job. This is something which is going to happen day in, day out, and it requires to continuously happen. Okay. So it's a continuous process. That is what it is. So that it stays relevant in this VUCA world. That is what it is. Okay. So this is what is the goals. So now we are going into functions. Okay. So here, what it is supposed to do. So functions of, so basically, there is one more thing before functions, that is importance of OD. Having said so much, I think everybody is aware how important OD is, right? This is required to make organization profitable, keep them effective, increase the productivity of the employee, keep employees happy, etc., etc. All those things to do the good for the organization, right? That is what is the importance. Now we are going for the functions of OD consultants. So in OD, consultants play a very important role where there is a third party guy who will come in, analyze your organization, suggest what all things that needs to be corrected so that the organization stay limited. I think all the McKinsey of the world is living on this kind of projects only. They actually do the analysis, they say these are the gaps, this is what the interventions that you need to do, etc., etc. Right? So typically what these consultants do, they first of all, every part of the organization that you would have read in OB, whatever you remember, all headings of the units will fall under functions. Leadership development. So they will tell leaders how exactly they need to actually behave. They will develop leaders. They will have strategic planning. They will have creative problem solving. They do team building. They do goal setting. They do organization restructuring. They create high involvement work teams. They do technical training. They do total quality management. So I'm not really explaining all these terms. There is only one term which I will probably explain in this is socio-technical systems design. Okay. So because all other terms are very, very, very straightforward and we know what those functions means. Okay. So those are the 18 functions listed there. So if anybody has got any other doubt other than socio-technical systems, let me know. I'll talk about that term as well. Coming to socio-technical systems design. Okay. So socio-technical system design is nothing but imagine you are actually designing a job for a employee or you're designing the job structures, right? So there are various ways that you actually do to design a job structure or design a particular job. So one of the way to do it is you keep employee needs, employee skills, employees background, right? All this in your mind and design job according to those particular aspects. At the same time, you also have needs of the organization. What are the technical skills that are required? Which functions needs to be done? So you are going to bring together both social aspects and technical aspects to design the job. Based on that, you are going to actually choose people saying that, okay, well, this guy seems to be very good in so and so subject or so and so behavior. So he suits well here, which is a requirement for the organization as well. So basically, you are fitting their jobs or designing their jobs, keeping both social and technical aspects together. Okay, that is what is socio-technical systems design, which comes later in the chapters in the top job design related aspects. That is why I explained here. Okay. So now, so that is about functions of OD consultants. Let me know in case if there is any other just a motherhood function which is something that you didn't understand, but I believe all rest of them are just something which is self-explanatory. Okay, so going next. Okay, so what consultancy, we are talking about functions. Now we are talking about what those consultants do to enhance or do these functions, right? So they are going to actually put strategies together and do multiple things, right? So some of the things are action research, conflict management. They have to put techniques related to conflict management. They do coaching for their executives, which is executive development, right? They sit and define the goals, right? So they do group facilitation. So it is like bringing groups together and making them talk, right? Managing resistance to change. So if there is any change which is being resisted, they will give strategies how to actually, manage it. They give strategies on how to restructure the organization. They give even tips on project management, right? They will help you to make these self-directed work teams. So all these are strategies which they bring up. The term which you might be confused here is only the action research. We already talked about socio-technical system design, so the term remains same here as well, right? What is action research? The action research also comes in the later units, but anyway, I'll give you a very brief about it. Action research is nothing but you are actually doing a research on how a particular action can be done in an effective way. You thought, so it is like this. You thought of doing something. Now you are doing a research. What is the best way of doing this? That is action research. So here you are not really trying to design what action to be done. You're trying to design or do a research on how to do a particular action. You already determined, I need to actually implement this. Your strategy told implement this. So now how to implement that? For that also I need to do the research, right? whether action should be done in this way, whether I should call teams and then explain this first, or should I actually, put so and so policy, etc., etc. Right. So how to be done is what is action research. So you are doing research on action. Okay. So that is what is action research. I think rest of the terms are anyway self-explanatory. All these things that you are actually seeing in effectiveness and the functions here are going to be coming in one or the other units as some important topic. Okay, so we are going to talk about them in detail at later point of time. So the last, as far as this unit is concerned, is organizational culture. We talked about how important culture is, right? So this is again emphasizing on the same aspect. And what is culture? Culture is nothing but the norms, sentiments, feelings, beliefs, attitudes, etc., etc. Right? So, culture forms a very basis for the organization development. Without focusing on culture, there is nothing that is going to happen. You can't really make any big changes in the organization, right? Even if you actually see the goals and other things, we have an open system, people are happy, and all those stuff. All these things really are driven by the culture. So culture is the one which is going to tell how exactly you need to understand an organization. So basically what you say is if you analyze the culture of the organization, you will be able to understand where this organization is going. So that is exactly what this section is also telling, right? So it is going further. Okay, now going into strengths of organization culture. Basically, there is a guy called as Morgan who really emphasized on the importance of the culture. Okay, so he says like if you do on the basis organization development on the basis of culture, there are multiple advantages, right? So basically, you're touching the human side of it, which is very very important for an organization. Okay, and it's like a shared meaning. It actually gives an appropriate meaning for the people. They can relate to the outcomes of it. Okay, so they will be because you're actually dealing everything from the culture point of view, right? And then you're acknowledging the impact on the organization culture. So basically, you are you're not going to change anything which is not acceptable by the culture. That is what you're actually doing. And if something comes, there is actually a statement. I forgot the scientist who gave that particular thing, which is very, 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 very famous quote. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you form a strategy which is not really supporting the culture is going to eat that strategy away. You can't really get your strategy right. Okay, so that is what this Morgan is telling again. Okay, so that's about unit 1 done. Okay, so any other doubts here? So now we are going to unit 2. Unit 2 is nothing but extension of whatever that we spoke in unit 1. So this is going to actually tell organizational development in a next level of details. In general, most of the units cover both unit 1 and unit 2 together. Like we always saw that we go into definition and then characteristics and then functions, process, etc., etc. But in this is split into 2 units basically. So that is why we are talking about again OD as a whole when it comes to unit 2, right? So this is going to be a kind of repetition of whatever that we actually had in the first, right? So first, nature. In general, nature is something which is actually encompassing the definition in detail. Okay, that is how you could actually see in the other units as well. Whenever there is a topic, nature is the motherhood statement, under that definition would come. So this nature is also something which is emphasizing on the same things that we spoke first. It is an ongoing process, continuous process. This depends on application of behavioral science. It covers systems approach. You are actually seeing entire organization as a whole, right? It is a normative re-educative change. Okay, I'll explain this term. Normative re-educative change is norms. The underlying word here is norm. The first four words, norm. What is norm? Something which is accepted by people as normal. So they basically you are challenging the culture here. So you are re-engineering entire culture. That is what this term is saying, normative re-educative change. It is like you are changing the norms and you are re-educating people and changing it. Okay. So OD is a normative re-educative change. Anyway, on this word, there is an entire unit. So we will learn it in detail. It is based on action research, and there are actually concentrates on work teams, and primary aim is to actually improve the organization. That is what is the nature of organization development. Now going into characteristics of it. Okay, so there are various ways you are going to look this OD. OD is an educational strategy. Basically, you're re-educating people. We talked about normative re-education. So it is going to actually strategizing how to educate people on various aspects. It could be skills, it could be culture, it could be various aspects. So it is like you're educating people using OD. It encompasses whole organization. You're bringing all organization together and strategizing it, right? And it focuses on real problems, not like you're going to hypothetically create a problem and then create an intervention for it. You're going to study organization, you're going to identify where the problems are, and then you're going to actually do it. So it is focusing on the real problems, not the hypothetical ones, right? And for that, you're going to bring a consultant and let him actually go through it and then do it. Okay. So now it's actually the practitioners who are going to come and analyze all these things. And these practitioners, what they are going to do, they are going to touch base with the people, establish the social connection, study them, and understand how exactly growth can happen. So it is organizational development is mainly done by the practitioners. So now focus on the immediate and existing problems. So it's not that we are going to focus on something which is like how after 20 years my organization look like, right? So this is something which is going to happen continuously, and you're going to focus on present and existing problem, and you're going to solve it and take it in the right direction. And whole process is very, very dynamic, right? So it is nothing like a defined the direction, because every organization will have different problems, and every problem might occur at a different times. So sometimes it is attrition which is a problem. The other time, maybe the salaries are the problem, right? You are paying heavily for the employee. So in one, when the attrition is problem, you might end up giving more salary. But when salary high, you might actually, let people go. So it's not like every situation is going to be same. So based on the situation, based on the need, based on the organization, etc., everything would be determined, right? And obviously major changes, whatever that you are actually doing, does take time. And while it is taking time, there are multiple things that would change in the middle as well. Even there is a aim that you would actually start with, but in the end, there would be a lot of changes that is going to happen. So it is actually a dynamic process. It is action based. You're going to do the survey, you're going to research how to do it, you're going to plan it, and all those stuff. So you do some action. It's not about just PPTs where you actually keep the PPT saying that these are the problems and close it. You're going to actionize on it. You're going to determine what steps to be done, right? And it works on the open adaptive system concepts. So basically what you are actually saying is the entire organizational concepts, right? There is a lot about culture that we talked about. So who is going to lead the culture? It is managers who are going to lead the culture in most of the cases. Right? A lot of cultural aspects are dependent on it. So the performance of the organization, the managerial performance is all interlinked. And what is the role that they play in the organization does really matter a lot. So we think in a very open way and also adapt to those particular things from the cultural point of view. So it is an open culture that OD talks about. So that these are the characteristic of OD. If there is a question that comes on characteristics of OD, we need to write these points. That is, as an education strategy, as a whole organization, real problems, practitioners, existing problem, it's dynamic process, action based, open and adaptive systems concepts. Next is OD process. So we are talking about diagnosis. So basically multiple, how typically happens. It is a scientific process, right? Scientific process cannot be random. It is not like I think arithmetics or no, there is some Benjamin who actually discovered the structure of C6, which is diamond. He got, I think, in the dream, like hexagon or something like that. Monkey is dancing, and suddenly he got up and formed the theory. But OD, unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. So people doesn't really dream and then come. So they actually do the diagnosis first. What is the problem? They will understand. Then they will plan what is the plan that they will actually need to be implemented. That is action plan. They evaluate how the actions are really faring, and if anything goes wrong, they intervene in the system to correct it. Right? These are the 4 steps. They diagnose, they plan, then they do. If something goes wrong, they intervene. Okay, so these are the 4 steps. So now we are talking about practitioners. To some extent, we talked about practitioners when we talked about the consultants here. So here, the main part that we are actually talking about is the values part of the practitioners. So this deals a lot with the culture. If you remember, even in OB, when it comes to this behavior management, we talked about the ethical problems or the question marks, right? So similarly, OD is also talking about changing the culture using the behavior management. So the values play a critical part. The one who is implementing this particular OD needs to be aware of the values, right? So, so this is our, so what is values? Values are something which are conceptions which are there on an individual or by a group. Basically, a group of people have some particular values, right? They actually have, so, so basically they have a lot of influence. The way you do, the way you think, all those things would actually, values play a very, very important role. OD does change values as well. Okay, so OD does actually question the values, and in case if these values require to be changed, it does do that as a change of values, right? So but it's actually, values are so important, they are like called as an engine of success. Basically, something values become very, very important. Okay, so whenever these OD practitioners keep values on the top, and they value people basically, and people's uh, you know people's culture or values or whatever it is, they get benefits in a better way if all these things are kept in their mind. Okay, so values play a very significant role as far as entire OD is concerned and the way that the organization perform, right? So so some scientists overemphasized on this. And they told that, okay, I think Stephen Robbins or whoever it is, he says that if you actually make sure values are respected, the OD would be successful, right? So it should actually, you should foster the trust, openness. You should treat employees with respect, right? And basically, you should have an effective mechanisms. If somebody is behaving like a dictator, it's nothing going to happen. So basically, you should be considerate about people. You should resolve the conflicts, right? And all the people, whoever is being impacted, you should involve them, right? And the values are like effective in various ways, right? Make sure that people are all involved in it. Overall development of people happens, right? It makes organization very, very effective. It creates that exciting and challenging work environment. It provides opportunity to the people, right? And people would appreciate whatever that you are actually doing as far as this, I mean, the OD is concerned. So, and the OD itself will actually appreciate even the individual's aspects. People will respect what organization is doing and vice versa, right? So this is what is the importance of values. Okay, so if the question comes values, you are going to talk about all the gyan, what values really, how value really matters. Okay, so this is all pure gyan. I think Stephen Robbins is the one who actually emphasized again on how important is values from the OD point of view. Okay, so this is unit 2 done. So now let's go into unit 3. Okay, so unit 3 talks about what is the history of OD. Okay, which is useless as far as exam is concerned. So I'm not going through the history of it. If anybody is interested to actually go through the history of it, they are free to read it. When it started, who the hell invented it, how people perceived it, what is it means as far as the modern era is concerned, right? So basically, in modern era, now it became more research centric. Net to net, I'll give you. It's like it became more research centric. We have now more tools, more interventions, types of interventions, and all those stuff when compared to old era. Right? We have more consultants available, so which can provide these organizational services, and we have more published material where it can be looked at. So and etc etc, right? I mean, this is also a very general thing which was never asked. Okay, so important thing which was asked was this question on global orientation and multinational orientation. So what is this? So before telling that, we need to understand what is worldwide organization, right? It is an organization which has got operations across the world. So it is operating in multiple countries, multiple cultures. So there are various types of organization as far as this operation is concerned. Majorly two types. One is global orientation and the second one is multinational orientation. What it means? Global orientation organizations does have one head office, and this head office is the one which is dealing with all its organizations kept in rest of the world. So typically, this is the organization who wants to sell its products in multiple countries because they are seeing market potential in other countries for their products. Okay, but the entire controlling authority is somewhere in the country of the origin, basically wherever that organization belongs. So they have a tighter control in terms of how they need to do things in the other countries or other cultures. So what it also means is some important decisions, some important things like doing the design of the product, these organizations might keep in their own country. For example, a lot of Japanese organizations do follow this kind of an approach. Example, Nissan. Okay, so these organizations basically they expanded. It's not like they don't have offices in the other countries, but it is mainly oriented towards selling and some functions which probably require close to the selling part of head or a brain is in some other country. So I'll come to this again on finer points. Let me explain what is multinational orientation as well. Then you will be able to appreciate what multinational orientation is. There is their presence is there in multiple countries, similar to global orientation, because it is a worldwide organization that we are talking about, type of worldwide organization, right? But here, every country branch are very much independent organizations. They do have their own policies, they do have their own CEOs in the respective countries. Obviously, they work together as an organization and report it to the head office. The profits, etc., are rolled up across the countries. All those things would be there, but it is not as tighter control as the other global orientation. Each independent country related organization do have their own way of working. They might have their own leave structure, they might have their own policies for leaving the employees. They have a different contractual obligations with the employees. They might have design wings separate within their countries. Research and development might happen separately. So every other aspect, I mean, it's like almost like independent organizations working in various countries. And the parent organization is more about coordinating with all these countries, right? So, so that is the difference between global orientation and multinational orientation. Okay, so what it means now, going to finer points, right? So global orientation tends to be centralized with product structure. So they will have product structure which is centralized on the top. Multinational orientation might have multiple products, and for each center there could be different type of a product. So they will have a lot of customization, right? So in case of global orientation, each major product group report to CEO. Everything reports to CEO, which is sitting in the parent country, right? And this obviously human resources policies are probably little bit culture oriented as far as individual staffs are concerned. That part would be taken care by these policies, but as an organization, you still have a tighter control, right? So, and also the managers or leaders are all sitting in the host country, right? So they know how to actually comply to the centralized decision making. They standardize the policies, etc., etc. It's all like synchronized with the host country, basically, as far as global orientation country concerned, right? In case of this, it is decentralized, coordinated across organizations. It might really require intergroup interventions to bring these local subsidiaries together, because now all are independent organizations. So you require some activity so that they are brought together with the parent company. It's not like you are getting day-to-day reporting. It's not that you are commanding things on them, right? So you require some intervention so that they are brought together, and they are much more friendly as far as those independent cultures are concerned. So people really appreciate their presence in those particular organizations, right? And the decision making is decentralized, and so basically there would be some tussle across the organization, across the cultures, because every organization is almost acting like an independent organization. Okay, so even reward systems are something which aligns to this decentralized structure. So this is about global orientation and multi-orientational orientation. Okay, so we are done with unit 3 as well. So now we are actually talking about some of the elements that we spoke about when we talked about what consultants would do, what are the strategies that they apply, right? We talked about the socio-technical design, action research and all. So this is the one which is actually talking about those aspects, the next level. Okay. So typically there are two types of changes that happen as far as the body is concerned. First change is first order change. What is this? First order change is something which is very basic in nature. It doesn't really challenge culture in a big way. Okay. So things which are very, very straightforward, still a change. It makes difference to the organization. We are not talking about amount of difference that it makes to the organization. They are not something which is sweeping change. So they are not really going to challenge the culture. They are not going to challenge the vision of the company, right? So that's first order change. Second order change, obviously, the other part, which is going to change the organization in a big way, right? Suddenly, some organization says that, for example, earlier Infosys was Infosys Technologies Limited. Now Infosys Limited. They removed technology because Infosys decided that we are not going to actually provide only technology services, we are going to provide more. So this is like a sweeping change, right? So this is second order change for the organization, right? So the one which challenges the culture, which is going to change the way the organization think, it is second order change. First order change is a change which is not going to challenge the basic aspects of the organization. Okay. So what it usually refers to, so it is something doesn't challenge the and contradict the context of the organization, right? So things like how you are going to design your job, etc., could be your core processes, which it will actually still do. So things like how do you do the action in a better way? Action research could be one of the elements of first order change. Team building, how do you build the teams, right? How do you actually do process consultation, right? What processes you would change internal, right? How do you gather the opinion of the people? How you actually make people more participative, etc. So some of these are elements of first order change. So now we are going to go through these elements of first order change. There are 6 elements: action research, team building, process consultation, survey feedback process, job design, participative management. So first and foremost, action research. So as I specified earlier, action research is nothing but you are inquiring how to do a particular action in a more effective way. Okay. So in a more effective way. So now what are the actions that it is referring to? Whatever the interventions that you do, whatever the problem solving that you do, every action, whatever actions that you generally do, right? So there are 3 things that are involved when it comes to this action research. One, you will collect the feedback, collect the data, right? So collection of data means you are doing the research in terms of, okay, yes, I mean, what all aspects that you require to do this particular research, you're collecting it, right? And then you analyze the data. The term that is used in the textbook is feedback of the data. So I thought this is a wrong word. Basically, feedback of the data is nothing but analyzing the data. Okay, and you are planning the action. Okay, so these are the 3 things that you are actually doing. So what action research is doing? Collecting the data, feedback of the data, or analyzing the data, and planning the action. Okay, so now what exactly it challenges? Right, so basically it is not just about your intuition on how to do the action, it challenges that knowledge. The reflective knowledge is what it challenges, right? So it's not just about intuition, you need to collect data, make it more scientific. That is what it challenges. Okay, so it makes you move beyond that reflective knowledge. So now, what are the major theories? There are multiple theories in this particular thing. Okay, the first theory is about the single loop learning and double loop learning. Okay, so there are, see, we talked about doing the research, right? So when you are actually doing the research, you have some goals, values, etc. What you want to do, why do you want to do, etc. Right? These are the core aspects of your action. Why do you do this action? Then comes, okay, yes, I want to do this, right? And then once I do this, I'm going to get these results. So these are the three steps you imagine in this way, right? One is the governing variables like goals, vision, values, beliefs, etc. Two, the action strategies or techniques, that is what we do. Three, results of that action. Single loop learning is nothing but you start from what we do, that is you are trying to actually concentrate on strategy of your action. Oh, this is what I want to do. I will analyze results and change the way I do. Basically, feedback is from results to what we do. It is not going to challenge your goal, it is not challenge your vision. It is only going to, feedback is only going to help you to change what you do. Okay, this is not working, I need to do in this way. This is not working, I need to do in this way. So feedback is only between stage 3 and stage 2. Double loop learning is going to change even the goals. Basically, based on the feedback, you realize that was my goal is useless. If I want to actually, achieve this vision, I can't achieve this vision at all. Let me change my vision. Okay, that is double loop. Okay, this is one theory. Okay, there is actually another theory as well, which is going to come in your future units, which is called as a triple loop learning. Triple loop learning is nothing but process of this, right? I mean, there is a governance variable, there is an action strategy, there is a result. And to execute this loop learning, there is a process that you have as a motherhood process. The way you do the action research itself, the way you do this OD itself, right? The methodology of your organization of continuous improvement. The triple loop learning will challenge that as well. Your methodology of even thinking, basically. Okay. See, I don't know why in this unit they didn't give triple loop learning. In the other unit, they give triple loop learning as well. Okay. It comes in change management. But yes, this is one theory. Okay. So now, second approach for this particular action research. So second theory. Okay. Which is by Levin. So he talked about process of change, which is again explained in, I think, block 3. Okay, in a bigger way. So Levin, what it says is any change would actually have 3 different stages. In one stage, you're going to do that preliminary diagnosis. You will gather the data, whatever the results that you have from previous planning, etc. You actually all have that particular thing. In the second stage, you do that action. This is where the transformation is happening while you are doing. And third stage is where results, the final result of your action is going to come. You have planning, you have action, you have results. We call them as 3 stages. Unfreezing stage. While you are doing this initial planning, you have a dilemma, discomfort, and you don't know what this change is going to do. Okay. And then slowly you have that particular understanding on how exactly what this change is all about, right? And then the second stage comes where you're transforming yourself, where while doing the action you're changing, things started moving, right? This is where you actually even explore things because you are started getting the feedback, right? And then the last stage where you are actually trying to you get the results, the new behavior emerged already. There are results. Now you are seeing a new result, and then you are telling back again saying that no, 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 I like this, or I don't like this, I want to change this part of this, etc. That is rephrasing. So you have unfreezing, you have changing, you have refreezing. In the other terms, you have unfreezing, you can say that that is the input, and the transformation that is happening as the action part of it, and you have an output. You have an input, transformation, output. Okay, so this is another theory, Levin's process of change. Now we are going into cooperative inquiry. In the cooperative inquiry, there are 4 phases. Again, it's actually in a different way of explaining the action Levin's process in 4 phases here. Phase 1, we are talking about establishing the focus area. This is where we are understanding key ideas, what we want to do. Right? All the things is, first of all, you need to be clear what you want to achieve. So this is what is phase 1. Phase 2, right? And now I need to collect resources. I'm collecting data related to what exactly the problem statement is, right? And then now after collecting data, you found you don't have to do anything, or you have to do something. That means you are now agreeing, oh yeah, yeah, I need to do these things, I need to take action, or I don't have to take action, right? And what actions that I need to take. Now in the 4th stage, where I'm going to reflect on results, whatever actions that I took, how it transformed into, do I have to change again? This is 4 phases that cooperative inquiry talks about. And while this process is happening, this is knowledge focused process. So there are actually 4 types of knowledge that it really this cycle takes through. 1, propositional knowledge. Propositional knowledge is nothing but what science tells about this. So basically, this is theoretical knowledge, bookish knowledge. You are going to get bookish knowledge to take some action. 2, practical knowledge. So this is going to come on your while you are actually doing. Okay. So basically, this is something that you are going to get while you are doing. So it comes practically. 3rd, experiential knowledge. Okay. So this is the knowledge which is going to come out of feedback. You did, while doing, you learned something. After doing, you got some feedback. Now you are learning more. That is experiential knowledge. 4th is presentational knowledge. So basically, this is based on something like you did some mock. You did that action in a mock way. You did some drama or rehearse that action. So basically, doing that kind of rehearsals, you will get presentation knowledge. Okay. So these are the 4 knowledge types that are going to be part of this cooperative inquiry. So now the last theory of action research, participative action research. Basically, it talks about 3 quadrants. Okay, so one is participatory. What it means, action research is more participatory in nature. You need more people to be participating, and these people should be empowered so that they can do action, right? So basically, participants who are there in the entire process of action research. 2, actions, what exactly they are going to do. These are the ones which are going to change the outcomes. These are the ones which are going to change the organizations. 3, research. That is how to do this, how to include people. All the research that you do is the 3rd aspect. So action research has got 3 aspects. One is participatory, Second is action. The third is research. This is another theory called as participative action research. So this is all about action research. Okay. So we talked about single loop learning, double loop learning. We talked about Levin's process of change. We talked about cooperative inquiry. In that, we talked about four knowledge knowings, and we talked about participative action research. Okay. So now we are going into team building. So the difficult. So in this entire unit, there are two difficult blocks. One is this action research. The other is job design. Rest all is all crap, okay, which you can actually write a lot as far as these things are concerned. But anyway, we are going to go through them. Okay, team building is the another thing, right? This is another intervention that you're going to do. So what team building is, I think you don't really require to go through that particular definition, right? You're actually bringing all the team together so that they can work in a best way. They have a close interaction, they solve problems together, the collective performance of the team would improve, etc. What are the different exercises that you do as far as the team is concerned? Communication exercise. You're going to tell your team how to communicate with each other. So you might actually play some games or something which is oriented towards the communication. The second type of exercise is problem solving and decision making. You're going to tell team how to solve a problem, how to make the decision. Third, planning adaptation exercise. So basically, you are telling how important it is to plan together, right? And you also tell how to plan together, how to implement a particular solution together. Trust exercise, where you are telling how to trust. It is more to bring trust across the employees, right? So in the team, they should trust each other. So that is what is the trust exercise. So these are the types of team building exercise. That concludes team building. Process consultation. So it is like doing the consultation as a basically you are trying to help an organization to improvise their particular processes. Okay. So basically it is contrasted with expert consultation and frequently seen by its advocates as a superior style of management consulting. Okay, so this is considered as one of the superior styles. Okay, OD talks a lot about consultants, practitioners. So this is like process consultants. You're actually bringing some consultants and experts, and then trying to actually do the overall process improvements, right? So this is well regarded. This is like one of the superior styles. Strengths of process consultation, right? So it is generally brought into picture with a problem in picture, right? So without any problem, you are not going to bring some process consultancy and try to do it. So it is focused on problem solving. It actually involves, and it increases the involvement and participation, because these consultants are going to actually touch base with various employees to get what is the problem. So there is no pre-built knowledge into these consultants, right? So this is going to so and these consultants are going to facilitate, rather improvise the overall consultant skills within the organization. So it is also about these, they are going to train these employees so that these employees are now well versed in terms of how exactly the things can be done, right? It is going to bring wider tools and methods which you haven't used before. Okay, and it all starts from mission, values, vision, etc., etc. Everything is going to come into picture. It is going to have shorter meetings, more productive meetings. You have consultant how he knows how to drive it, better decisions, increased feeling of participation, greater satisfaction with team or meeting. So these are the advantages of it. Now we are going into survey feedback process. The name itself is self-explanatory. You're talking about gathering the feedback, right? And feedback is one of the tools to get the opinion, right? And so that leaders can be guided what is that they are doing right, what is that they are not doing right. So it helps us to identify the gap between the current process and what the desired situation is, right? Otherwise it is not very apparent. Basically, some of the things which are not apparent would actually come out of this survey feedback. It is more participative approach where you're actually bringing all employees into the process. They are giving you what their opinion is, right? Everybody is actively engaged. I mean, generally, how survey would be planned. First, you need to identify what is the objective of your survey, right? And then you need to brief the objective to the leaders, employees, before even asking them to answer the survey. And then you need to take the survey. While taking the survey, you might have to conduct interviews. You might have to actually have some focus group interactions, etc., etc. Okay, and to do all these things, you need to actually train your people so that they can facilitate these discussions in a much better way, right? And once you collect all the data, you need to analyze that data and then create a report for the leaders, the feedback report, saying that this is what it came out of the research. And then now you need a plan based on whatever the report that comes, what you need to do, right? All the gaps that it identifies. And present the report to the senior management. So basically, it will go to the board and say that this is what we are going to do, etc., etc. Right? And senior leadership will do the follow up on the progress and see that it is properly done. This is about survey feedback. Now we are going into job design. So as I specified, job design is nothing but you are going to actually design the jobs that needs to be done uh, uh, within a particular organization, right? You are going to tell that, oh yeah, I'm going to have a team specially focused on engineering. I'm going to have a special team which is going to focus on so and so aspect. I will have a quality team. I will have a human resource team. In human resource team, I will have like one who is concentrating on recruitment, one who is concentrating on engagement, etc., etc. Right? What should be the role of an engagement officer? What should be role of project delivery manager, etc., etc. Right? So your the entire design is job design. You're designing the job that needs to be done by various people, various employees, right? So it does have various techniques, approaches to it. So first approach is engineering approach. What it means is in engineering approach, it typically happens within factory. You are going to publish who is going to do what at least a day before, saying that was these are the names of employees who are going to work in so and so factory floor. They are going to fix bolts, or so and so are the employees who are going to see this machinery. They are going to actually monitor how this machine is going to work. So it is going to tell employees well in advance, at least a day before, saying that this is what you are supposed to do. And the requirement could keep changing. So it happens in such a way that in production environment, so you might have to produce more, let's say, if it's a factory where it's a Ford factory where you have EcoSport, where you have some other car, some other car. So depending on the need and bookings, so on one day you might decide that, okay, yes, I'm going to actually manufacture more EcoSports because demand is more there. Or I'm going to say that, oh yeah, some Ford Endeavor is what is in more demand. I'll suddenly shift my staff from that flow of EcoSports into Endeavor. So I will actually change based on the engineering need. Okay, so that is what is the engineering approach. Here you are not really considering the employee needs, etc., etc. Obviously, you're going to consider their ability to do the task. You're going to provide them how to do that task, all those things, right? Without that, they can't really perform. But this is not human centric. This is more engineering centric. Okay, it is very much rational. Obviously, it fits to the organizational performance, and the organization, it will increase the performance because it is more towards the goal of what organization wants. But a lot of people really feel very routine because they don't belong anywhere. They don't have that pride. They don't have that distinction saying that, boss, I am the design lead, or I am the so and so thing. I make this product. And they can't really tell anything that is significant. On one day, they will say that I was fixing the bolt. The other day, I will say that I am checking the tire pressure. Right. So, like, it becomes very routine. Right. Specialization is there. You have experts, but even for them, it is more on a routine thing that is going to happen. And specialization, how it is how it is done, more they do that work, they will be specialized, right? More and more somebody is in the tire department, he will become the expert of the tire, right? So that is how the expertise would be built. Problems with it, it does have very social, very, I mean, it is repetitive for a lot of them. It is very mechanical. You see where you are and just you are going, there is no pride associated with it. You don't have any ownership on the end product, because one day you are in tire, one day you are in something else. You don't feel that you made the product, right? So very less social interaction, very mechanical. Typically happens in factory, right? So no input taken from the employees. Now we are going into next one, which is human relations approach, where human is the center part of designing the job. In this approach, you mainly talk to the people, understand their needs, and then deploy them based on that. For example, you found that somebody wants to travel abroad, he has got a need, right? You might say that, okay, I'll give you a abroad opportunity, go there, right? So you understand people aspirations and then try to actually fit the job requirements based on their particular aspirations. Okay, so it is more on need satisfaction, and you enrich the jobs based on the needs. Okay, so now, if you remember, there is a job characteristic model which we wrote in the exam as well. So it fits into this particular thing, right? So basic job characteristic model, if you remember, it does have the core job dimensions, right? Which is going to result into some psychological states, and then finally that results into the motivation. Okay, so job characteristic approach, same to same, ditto, ditto, whatever there is in the OB is published here. It belongs to this human relationship approach. Okay, where you are centered on what is the skill that you need to teach employees. You need to give the task identity to them. They need to feel the significance of the task. They need to get the autonomy, right, to do that. And feedback is going to actually, enrich their particular experience, etc. The other ditto from OB is Hertzberg two-factor theory. If you see, remember, there is a need theory called as Hertzberg two-factor theory,
Yes.
where we said two factors. One is
Motivation.
hygiene factors, and the other is motivators,
Motivation.
right? So this theory also belongs to this human relationship approach. Correct. Okay. These two theories I am not explaining in detail because I thought we already went through in OB. Okay, ditto, ditto. There
Yeah.
is no difference. Okay, both are talking about motivation, and human relationship approach is mainly about keeping the motivation high. That is why those motivation theories, in fact, not just these two theories, you can bring all those need theories and other things and talk about in this section, actually speaking. Okay, so now we are going into social technical systems approach. So this is also people centric, but it is bringing both the technical part of it and people part of it together. That is what this method really talks about. It is bridging these technical requirements, which is that what job need to be performed, etc., and mix with the social requirements. aspects of the job and what people want, right? So it designs a job in such a way that both the people and technology both are like mixed properly. Okay, and obviously, if you have to mix, the employee should compromise something, manager compromise something. There should be a close interaction between these things. So there is a combined effort which is required to achieve this, right? So obviously, job really required to provide. See, there are certain basic hygiene factors which it needs to provide. So there are certain uncompromisable aspects if people are to be happy, right? Like whatever the hygiene factors that we talked about, it has to provide that challenge to the people so that they can, remain happy, right? So they should be able to learn something while doing the job. They should have decision making authority. They should be able to do that decision making, right? And they should have that social support, that their efforts are recognized. So these hygiene aspects are to be maintained, as I said, because the social needs of the employee, these form some of the basic social needs, right? So obviously these are something which is, some things are non-negotiable to some extent. So the socio-technical systems approach make sure that these things are met, right? So now this completes the entire job design. So job design, we talked about three things. One is engineering approach, second is human relations approach, third is socio-technical systems approach. In human relationship approach, we talked about those need theories, etc., job characteristic approach, and also the two-factor theory. Okay, so that completes job design. So now we are going into participative management. What is participative management? You are promoting employees so that they can participate in management, not participating in the low level work. They are participating in decision making. They are participating in analysis of the problems, higher levels of strategy, those kind of things. So you are making employees set the goal. You are involving them in the decision making process. Okay, this is participative management. Management which is participated by various employees. So in order to enable employees to make decisions, so here we are talking about very risky jobs. You can't really get an employee and sit in the management without proper base, right? So in order to do that, you require at least four things that needs to be satisfied. So what is the process? First, you need to share information for them. Okay, information how they can actually be participating. They can't participate in it. You need to train them. They require sufficient skills. Otherwise, you are asking to take a decision, right? You need to make it an horse before actually participating in the race. Third, so you need to enable them so that they can make decision. You need to give that authority, right? Fourth, they need to be rewarded for making those decisions. This is process of participative management. Basically, these are the things that are going to influence the participation. So what is the benefit? Obviously, employee would feel happy. There is a pride because they are now in the management. They themselves are the leaders now, right? And they are more receptive to the change because now decisions are being made by them. They are more receptive to the change. So they can identify areas of concern and give the solutions. And you have more people who could actually think creative. So creativity would be high, right? And so basically it is like careful planning and slow phased approach is what would make it successful. In some cases, long term employees see these are some problems. Okay, it is mixed in this section of benefits, but some long term employees might have a problem in this entire process because नया employee एक join कर दिया, for example, in our apartment itself, right? I'll give you an example where we were actually recruiting people to do a cleaning job. So there were four people who were actually going to do cleaning job. Two of them left, so we got two new people. So when we gave same salary of those existing two employees, these two senior employees who were there since long, they came to management and asked that how can you actually give same salary for the junior employees because they just joined? Give 500 less. So in fact, employees came and told, let's not really, give the same salary. So it's like long-term employees, they would worry if you're actually including the rest of the employees into the decision making. So so they might resist these kind of things, right? And also to get this working, managers needs to be very honest implementing the program, right? So I mean, they need to actually help employees to get this decision making process. They need to identify what is the strength, right? You can't really give a job of train how to swim to a monkey. At the same time, you can't really tell fish to actually teach somebody to climb a tree, right? You will have to identify strengths, and then you need to actually give that authority to them to make the decision in those areas. Okay, so this is all about participative management. Now we are going into second order change. To some extent, I told second order change. This is like sweeping changes. This is going to change organization's culture, left and right. People will be worried. People will be like resisting in a big time because this is challenging the basic paradigm of the organization. This is going to threaten various employees. It's going to disturb various people, right? Some of them might go into psychological traumas, etc., etc. So very difficult. It is generally a very long term process. This cannot really be short. This needs to be very long, very painful, right? And you require that persistence, patience, and etc. to make this happen. That is second order change. Okay, so now we are going into organizational development interventions. As I said, when intervention is going to come, when there is something is wrong, we're going to do intervene to it and apply some band-aid. There is bleeding certain area, oh yeah, this is the area, this is bleeding, no, let me get the band-aid. No, जॉनसन वाला बैंडेज अच्छा है, जॉनसन का बैंडेज लगाऊंगा. नहीं नहीं, यहाँ पे टर्मरिक काफी है, आई विल जस्ट पुट टर्मरिक टू इट, etc., etc. So based on whichever area is bleeding, you will recognize the right intervention, and then you will fix it, right? What is the effective intervention? How intervention is effective, right? It should fit the need. जहाँ पे टर्मरिक लगाना है वहां पे टर्मरिक लगाना है, जहाँ पे बैंडेड लगाना है वहां बैंडेड लगाना है, right? So depending on the need and fitment to it, right? And it's also based on casual knowledge of intended outcomes. Do you really know what is the outcome? It depends on that, right? So it also depends on competence, how you're going to, what is your competence in achieving it, right? So basically, uh, that particular part is also something that tell you how effective your intervention is. There are various types of intervention. Entire block 4 talks about all these types. Okay, we don't really have to go through these types in detail. Example, sensitivity training. Here you are going to train your employees on sensitive things. You're going to probably train on culturally sensitive aspects, or some other sensitizing them on some policies, etc., etc. So all sensitive related aspects are the ones which you are training here. Survey feedback, you're going to take feedback in case if there is anything wrong that is happening, right? You're going to set the goals, replan things. You're going to do team management, team building. If the problem is related to teams are not gelling together, you'll do team building as an intervention, right? So job enrichment, you're going to focus on how to enrich a job because people are not satisfied with the job they are doing. You might bring an intergroup team building exercise. You might bring an external process consultant and then make them do consultant. All possible actions to fix or band-aid comes under types of interventions. You might change the structure of the organization, etc. Okay. So this is about the interventions, okay, which actually covers all the important parts of this particular uh, unit. Okay, so there are other things as well which goes into details, like in the interventions. Each intervention type is talked about, but we will cover that in greater detail in the block 4. Block 4 is all about interventions. Okay, and this part, high level definitions, nobody asked. Okay, so high level definitions, you know, how what are the types of interventions, right? So that's all about entire block 1 of OD. We are finished with unit 4 as well.